Welcome to our preview and prediction show on Buckeye Breakdown, Ohio State and Penn State, with, frankly, what will probably be Ohio State's toughest game to date. Ohio State certainly had some bigger opponents on the schedule early in the year, but they've all pretty much underachieved. Not Penn State, though. This is a good Nittany Lion team that Ohio State in the past has struggled with. What are we expecting here on Saturday afternoon, which is a bit rare as well? The Buckeyes finally playing an afternoon game in Happy Valley. Coming up next on Buckeye Breakdown. We've got the whole crew together as we cover Ohio State with our instant analysis from Ohio State.
There's something that doesn't feel right.
Unbelievable effort from him today. Is E.J. Liddell going to crack the first team All-Big Ten?
I think he can be the guy. I'm not trying to start a quarterback controversy.
He seems to have the durability. He certainly has the toughness. This is the question on a lot of people's minds here. Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown. Happy Friday morning. And I'm sure excited for this Ohio State-Penn State game. I know a lot of folks are, as they finally feel like we've got another big game on our schedule. It's not that Notre Dame and Wisconsin and Iowa weren't big games, but going into those games, you felt pretty good based on the way those teams have played so far this year. And I realize maybe the Notre Dame game's a little different because it's the opener, but now that we're into the meat of the schedule in October, you feel like Penn State's got a little momentum after they beat up on Minnesota, and Ohio State's going to have their hands full on Saturday afternoon. Or will they? We'll find out. I'm Brendan Gulick along with Craig Hyson. Thanks for hanging out on Buckeye Breakdown. You can support our show if you'd like by subscribing to this YouTube channel. We sure would appreciate it if you'd consider doing that. If you're listening after the fact in our audio-only version, we are streaming live this morning, and feel free to join us live. But if you'd like to listen after the fact, wherever you'd like to find your favorite podcast, we post this in lots of different places. And for all the latest, check out BuckeyesNow.com. Before we go any further at all, happy birthday to Craig Hyson.
Hey, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I feel like around my birthday every year they play Penn State. We were just talking before we got started. One of my all-time favorite Ohio State games, that comeback in 2017. Incredible. One of the loudest roars I've ever heard at Ohio Stadium when J.T. Barrett threw that touchdown pass to Marcus Ball. So always a good, fun Halloween weekend. Hopefully nothing spooky goes down, though, Saturday afternoon in Happy Valley.
I'm with you. I was looking at the ESPN, game prediction models earlier. I don't remember exactly what they call it anymore, but they basically said Ohio State has like a 76% chance or 74% chance to win this game, something in that ballpark. And I mean, I guess I get that, but I just have a hard time thinking that, roughly 20 times out of 100 that the Buckeyes lose on Saturday. And maybe that's a bad way to think about it, but I think Penn State is a good team. I really do. I just don't think they're anywhere near as good as Ohio State is. Now, you got to go play and you got to go execute it. What Penn State is really good at defensively, theoretically, matches up well against what Ohio State does really well offensively. But college football is a game that's predicated on offense. It's built for scoring. And if you can't generate pressure on an opposing quarterback at the line of scrimmage to force him into making bad decisions, your secondary is going to eventually break down, especially when you've got the kinds of wide receivers that the Buckeyes have. So I sort of look at this game and think to myself, I really like the way Ohio State's offensive line is playing. The running backs have been excellent in pass protection all year. Cade Stover is a huge weapon at tight end. I don't think C.J. Stroud is going to be under the same kind of pressure or face the same kind of confusing defense that he saw last week when he maybe looked a little flustered in the first half. And I guess I just don't see this game as close as the 15.5 points that the spread indicates.
Yeah, they have great corners. I mean, you hit on it in the preview show, too, yesterday. Joey Porter Jr. is going to be a first-round corner. Kalen King is going to be a high draft pick as well. Thank you for the comment, Sage. He's going to be a high draft pick as well. Jair Brown, Jair Brown, very good. But I'd be a little bit more concerned if their defensive line matched how well their secondary is, because they've had a really good defense then, but they don't have a very good defensive line this year. So I expect a big game out of Cade Stover Saturday because I don't think they're going to have to use him in pass protection quite like they did against Iowa. So he's going to be able to get his hands on some balls this weekend, I think, and have a big game. So the matchup of our receivers versus their corners, though, and safeties is going to be fun to watch because it's a lot of NFL guys across the board.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody in America wants to see Joey Porter Jr. against Marvin Harrison Jr. Certainly because those two guys are really good, but also it's kind of a fun, NFL bloodline matchup and perhaps a future NFL matchup. Sure feels that way. I don't know how much Ohio State is going to be able to run the ball or how much they want to run the ball. I get the impression that's part of their game plan, but it feels like when things don't go quite as well in the run game that Ryan Day just turns to Stroud and says, okay, let it rip. Now let's acknowledge that the Buckeyes are one of only two teams in the country offensively that are averaging 300 yards through the air and 200 yards on the ground per game. So it's not like the running game hasn't been good. But there have been some moments, and certainly last week it was tough to run the ball. I think it's going to be easier for them to run the ball against Penn State. I don't see schematically from Penn State the same kinds of things that I saw out of Iowa. So I anticipate that Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams are going to be in better, maybe a little better shape here this week. But I think the Buckeyes just kind of have a tendency to want to prove a point through the air. And, CJ's done a pretty good job of making good decisions, especially last week. I realized there were some frustrating moments for him, but he only turned it over once, and he guided the offense on 9 scoring drives against the number 3 defense in the country. So, put the ball in the hands of the guy you trust the most.
I agree. I'm going the other way a little bit, Brennan. I think after last week and not being able to run the ball, we kind of saw that towards the end of last season. I think they really try to run it Saturday, in my opinion, just because Michigan, and we'll see how Ohio State's run game stacks up. Obviously, different game, different day, but Michigan ran all over Penn State for the tune of over 400 yards. Minnesota ran pretty well against Penn State last week. Obviously, Penn State put it on them, but pretty good. But Minnesota was able to run the ball, so I think Ohio State's going to make an emphasis. But the key there is how healthy is Travion and Mayan. We didn't hear a lot of injury talk this week from Coach Day. He was not willing to really give any information on injuries at all in any press conferences that he did. And leads me to my next point, and going to ask you, does Jackson Smith and Jigba play on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know for sure. We won't know until tomorrow morning. My gut feeling is no.
That's mine as well.
I hate that I'm feeling that way. I was in the Woody on Tuesday, and it was obviously before practice, and unfortunately we're not, permitted to be at practices. And I don't say we like Buckeye Breakdown, that practice is closed to the media, and certainly the folks that are watching and listening to this know that. I'm hopeful that Jackson's going to be okay, but it kind of feels at this point like he's re-aggravated something. I don't want to be unfair and speculate. I'm just telling you my gut feeling. I don't think he's going to play. I want him out there, and look, if he's not on the field, as much as that stinks because of his ability, Ohio State's got the best passing offense in the country without him. And obviously it's that much scarier when he's in there, right? So let's acknowledge that. But, Marvin and Emeka and Julian have done a really, really good job. I think this could be a really fun breakout game for Julian Fleming. I mean, he's a Pennsylvania kid. He's finally healthy in his senior year. Like, let him go eat and keep giving him the ball. And CJ is going to put it in places where he can make plays. Julian's had a really good year. Emeka and Marvin get an awful lot of attention, and they should. But let's give Julian Fleming his credit, because this kid's playing at a high level right now, and he had a huge touchdown last week that really, put a seal on the game. So I hope Jackson can play. I'm crossing my fingers to be surprised tomorrow, but I guess I just don't expect him to be out there at this point.
I don't either. If you had to make me put a bet on it right now, I'd say he's not going to suit up just from what we saw last Saturday, the pitch count, real close. Not giving any information away this week. It just doesn't look like he's playing or sound like he's playing. So it is concerning.
I wonder how many people feel the way Sue does here. She chimes in and says, I think Penn State's going to play spoiler for the Bucks. I mean, I guess I can see where it's possible. I don't think they're a terrible football team, and I can certainly see where they win. I just don't think it's very likely. You think about what you have to do to beat Ohio State right now. It's not just about stifling their offense anymore. That was last year. You're playing against a defense that right now is a top 10 defense in the country. They've proven it in lots of different categories. They've done it with enough of a body of work that I don't think it's fair to say they quote unquote haven't played anybody. You know, I realize the strength of their schedule may not have turned out right now the way that we anticipated before the season started. I think that's maybe more of a condemnation of the Big Ten itself this year, outside of the Buckeyes and Michigan. And yes, they're going to see a good team, but I mean, we haven't seen Penn State go crazy offensively against a good defense. In fact, they only scored 17 points against Northwestern, who's had a really bad year. And certainly they got smoked by Michigan 41-17 because Michigan killed them at the line of scrimmage. So, you know, again, like I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Penn State. They've got some really good players. Ohio State is scoring almost 50 points a game, and that includes 21 points in their opener against Notre Dame. It's well over 50 a game if you take that game out of the sample size for the last 6 now. And on top of that, their defense is having an incredible season. Ohio State's scoring defense, looking at the stats right now, is 5th in the country, 14.9. They have given up fewer than 20 points in 4 of the 7 games they've played. And I just don't look at this Penn State team and think that, you know, I mean, look, maybe they get a defensive touchdown. Maybe there's a special team score. I just don't see them consistently marching down the field against Ohio State right now. And it has a lot to do with the fact that if Penn State's going to have a successful day, they need to run the ball. They need to shorten the game. Ohio State has been absolutely unbelievable in short yardage situations. They've been incredible on third downs defensively. They're the number 2 defense in the country on third down, less than 25% of the time. Ohio State's red zone defense has been a little shaky, but most teams haven't really driven into the red zone against them. The Buckeyes are number 2 in the country in total defense at 240 yards a game. They're allowing only 90 yards a game on the ground. That's 8th best in the country. Only 149 yards a game through the air. I mean, I think we've got enough of a sample size to say, okay, the defense is playing well. And when I look at the way Penn State tries to move the ball, I just don't think there's enough there that I feel worried going into this game. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm just not that worried.
Yeah, there's no doubt Penn State's been the toughest opponent for Ohio State the last 10 or so years. But Ohio State's got a 5-game win streak. Last loss was 2016. The one thing with Penn State that they've done in that 5-game win streak is they do hold Ohio State under their average points per game that they have going into when they play Penn State. So, and even so, Ohio State has still won those games. So last year's game, Clifford played well. He had the 1 interception, but there were some times that you could say that was one of his better games that he played. Last week was probably his best game he's played at Penn State, his Minnesota performance. So I just Penn State fan, it's kind of a weird spot right now because last week Clifford and Franklin are getting booed before the game.
The game, like they hadn't even taken the field yet.
Right. And I don't know if I've personally seen that in college. You see that sometimes in the NFL, but college I have not seen your quarterback who's been there for 6 years.
By the way, for a team that's 6-1, it's not like they're
right
2-5.
And we all know why they're booing. They want to see Drew Allard from Ohio. So it's understandable by all accounts. And what we've seen from him, he looks like a surefire future NFL quarterback. So we'll get into that next year when we play Penn State. But they have two great freshman running backs. They're gonna have to try to run the ball, like you said, and slow the game down, because I'm not totally sold on Clifford being able to lead them to a victory through the air. It's just he gives the ball away too much. There's times he's careless. Yes, he can scramble, so they need to be aware of that. I wouldn't say he's a running quarterback by any means, but he can definitely hurt you with his feet if you let him.
So, I mean, last year I felt similarly coming into this game, and admittedly it was a little closer than I thought, but I wasn't ever really concerned that the Buckeyes were going to lose the game. And included in that is a defense that wasn't very good last year for Ohio State. I mean, they really weren't very good yet. Now I really think they are. The over-under in the game, the last I saw was 61, and I think the spread is 15.5. So you start to think about, okay, what that score looks like, and that just doesn't feel right to me. I don't see Ohio State scoring fewer than 40 points. They score 40 points or more basically 3 out of every 4 games they play. And they've got a really good secondary, but I just don't think that they're going to be able to pressure Stroud enough unless CJ just has an awful day. And we haven't seen that from him. I mean, CJ's bad days are last week, 20 of 30 for 286, 4 touchdowns and an interception. So I just don't see anything historically from Stroud to make me think that he's going to struggle against this team. I think you have to look at it from a smaller lens. This is not, hey, this has been a tough matchup the last 10 years. It has, and it's made it fun. But that's all about the hype of the game. That has nothing to do with what's going to happen on Saturday. Mm-hmm. Saturday's game is about these players, this team, this scheme, this coaching staff. And I just think Ohio State is going to win handily. So, I'll just give it to you now. I mean, my final score prediction is 45-17. I think Ohio State will be better at not settling for field goals this week. They have been the only team in the country that has scored every single time they've gotten in the red zone, field goals and touchdowns. But, they haven't turned the ball over in critical areas on the field, even when there's been some times where it's a little frustrating because maybe it's taken a few extra plays for them to score. And I just don't. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I don't think Sean Clifford is the guy. He is a really good college quarterback. He's Trace McSorley. He's a very good college quarterback. He is not an NFL quarterback in the making. And I think Penn State fans are riled up because they know they've got a kid that is all the hype, all the talent, big arm, and can really play, waiting behind Sean. And maybe it's James Franklin's best move to hold Drew for now and just give him a full year to not get a ton of reps and to go get his feet underneath him and learn from somebody like Sean Clifford, who, in my opinion, his toughness and his leadership are his best traits. But this Penn State offense against this Ohio State defense, I don't see Penn State going crazy. I think it's a 45-17 game.
Yep. And I don't even know if I'd go as far, Brennan. You're a little bit nicer than me than to say Clifford's even a Trace McSorley type. Trace was, I'd have him just a titch below maybe. Clifford's had a hell of a career, but Trace McSorley, he was a very good quarterback for Penn State. But I'm right there with you. I'd be a little bit worried if our defense was last year's defense going into this game, but they're not. They're a heck of a lot better. All the numbers speak for themselves. The key, I think, in this game that is going to be big because they have those 2 good freshman running backs is getting off the field on third down, which Ohio State has not had a problem with this year. As you said before, they're second in the country on third down right now. So Penn State's going to be forced with a lot of third downs, and I think Ohio State gets off the field the majority of the time Saturday. But I have it kind of the same way. No disrespect to Penn State. I just don't think they have the guys this year. I think next year's game will be very good, though.
Yeah.
But
I am a little concerned about next year, but we're talking about this year.
Right. I have it. I was going to go 40-20. And I think we see a Denzel Burke interception for the first time this year. I think Clifford's going to give him a gift that he doesn't quite run back for a touchdown, but I think he gets close. So I'm hoping for that. Denzel Burke's been trending, hasn't been challenged quite like he will be Saturday, but I think hopefully these past couple of weeks give him some confidence, whether that's fake confidence. I don't really care. I just want him to have confidence. So I think that score. And then I think coming out of halftime, we see Drew Aller take over Penn State, and that's the only reason they score 20 points.
Okay.
I think Ohio State puts it on them in the first half. Really strong emphasis on running the ball. You saw what Michigan did and Minnesota did running the ball. I think Ohio State says, hey, we're going to show you how tough we are. We're going to do that same thing. I think that's the way I see it going this Saturday.
I love it. I love it. Any birthday plans? What are you doing?
No birthday plans, really. Just dinner tonight, and then watch the game tomorrow. It's going to be weird watching an Ohio State Penn State game in the daylight in Happy Valley, but their crowd, hopefully they're going to a bunch of Halloween parties tonight, and they wake up sleepy, and it's not as loud as it normally is in Happy Valley. But I'm not going to hold my breath for that. I think it's still going to be a great crowd, and I think Ohio State's team has got to be excited to go into a hostile environment. I mean, Michigan State was not. So to be able to go on the road, which they haven't done much this year, to kind of stick it to the opposing fans is going to be fun to watch.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Really looking forward to what we hope will be a great game tomorrow night. The plan is to be there, and I'm knocking on wood because we finally get to that time of year where you just never really know what's going to happen with airlines and whatnot. I'm in Chicago here today, but flying to Philadelphia tonight and then driving to Happy Valley tomorrow morning, which I understand is going to be a hell of a commute. Not just because it's a 3-hour plus drive, but if you're going to the game, all recommendations are get there as early as you can because there's basically, one road in and one road out of University Park on both sides. So that should be entertaining to navigate in the morning, but the luck will be there. Yeah.
Good luck.
I might only have one eye open. I might be running on coffee, but that's okay. Looking forward to some fun as Ohio State and Penn State get rolling tomorrow afternoon. All right. Well, that kind of puts a bow on our preview coverage this week. We've got a couple of good pods I thought that were worth a listen for you, including, if you missed it yesterday, we talked with Mark Wogenrich from All Penn State to give us a look at the Nittany Lions and what people in their fan base are talking about, what he sees from this year's team, and where maybe they could have some success against the Buckeyes. So check that out as well. It's both over on our YouTube channel and posted wherever you like to find your favorite podcasts. Thanks for subscribing. Really appreciate that. We're trying to keep growing the channel here as we give you the best Ohio State coverage that we can. So look forward to tomorrow. Can't believe it's already week 8. We're in the back half of the schedule, and the Buckeyes are right where they want to be, and they've got to take care of business on Saturday afternoon. For Craig Hyson, I'm Brendan Gulick. We'll see you tomorrow in University Park. We got plenty of game day coverage coming your way, so hope to see you tomorrow over on BuckeyesNow.com. Have a good Friday, everybody.